He was called to greatness, a young man with vision, integrity, and a quiet fire burning in his soul. People admired him, sought his advice, and even feared the spiritual weight he carried. But in the silence of the night, behind closed doors, he fought a war few ever saw. A relentless struggle with lust that threatened to dismantle everything he stood for. This is the hidden battle of the chosen ones, the gifted, the anointed, the purpose-driven souls who carry the weight of destiny on their shoulders while wrestling with shadows in secret. Their calling makes them targets, and their struggle isn't a sign of weakness, but of the magnitude of their mission. If you've ever wondered why the chosen ones, the leaders, the light bearers, the visionaries struggle with lust, here are 9 reasons that pull back the curtain on this spiritual battlefield. The first reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because spiritual warfare targets the gifted, and it does so with ruthless precision. When you are marked by God, when there's an undeniable calling on your life, you don't get to live a casual life or fight casual battles. You are seen in the spirit realm as a threat, a divine disruptor, a breaker of generational curses, a restorer of order, a light in dark places. And because of that, the enemy crafts strategies specifically to dismantle your destiny. Lust, in this warfare, is not just a carnal temptation. It is a spiritual assignment sent to corrupt the vessel before the mission is complete. It's not about pleasure. It's about power. The enemy knows that if he can bind your vision with shame, entangle your emotions with guilt, and trap your energy in cycles of secrecy, then he can weaken your authority and mute your voice. You see, chosen ones are often anointed long before they are appointed. And in that gap between calling and fulfillment, there is spiritual vulnerability. David was anointed king as a young man, but his private war with lust nearly destroyed his kingdom. Samson was born to deliver Israel, but lust was the enemy's weapon of choice to blind and bind him. The Bible is filled with stories of mighty men and women whose downfall began not with swords or betrayal, but with subtle seductions that crept into their lives unnoticed. Chosen ones aren't weak. They're targeted. Their struggle with lust is often evidence of how powerful they truly are. It's not just about resisting urges, it's about understanding the assignment. If you knew how high the mountain was that you're destined to climb, you'd understand why the storm hits you so hard at the base. That's why you can't afford to entertain what is sent to entertain you. You can't play with what is plotting your downfall. The devil doesn't fight people who aren't dangerous. Lust is not just a struggle, it's spiritual sabotage wrapped in seduction. But the good news is, if you're being targeted, it means you're chosen. And if you're chosen, then you're equipped. You've been given the armor, the discernment, and the authority to overcome. You're not just fighting for your purity, you're fighting for your purpose. So stand firm. Don't let shame silence you. Don't let the fall define you. Rise, chosen one. Cleanse the altar. Reclaim your focus. Because the very attack sent to destroy you is the same one that will prove just how mighty your calling really is. The second reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because high spiritual energy attracts temptation. Not just ordinary temptation, but the kind that's tailored, persistent, and deeply seductive. When your spirit burns with light, when your presence carries a divine weight, you don't just attract people, you attract spirits. The spiritual realm recognizes the power flowing through you even before you do. Your aura is magnetic. Your energy disrupts darkness, awakens dormant souls, and inspires transformation in others. But that same radiant energy becomes a beacon, not only to those who need healing, but to forces that seek to corrupt or consume your light. Lust senses power. It hunts potential. It clings to the chosen, not because you're weak, but because you carry something sacred. The enemy knows that if he can hijack your energy, he can reroute your destiny. Chosen ones often walk into rooms and feel energy shift, not realizing their presence has unsettled the atmosphere. They feel eyes on them, not because of vanity, but because their spirit is speaking louder than their words. That's why the temptation that comes their way isn't surface level, it's strategic. It flatters the ego, fills the emotional gaps, and mimics intimacy while draining the soul. It disguises itself as love, connection, or excitement, but its true purpose is to exhaust your divine essence. You see, lust is a spiritual parasite. It doesn't just want your body, it wants your clarity, your focus, your ability to discern and lead. It wants to deplete the very energy that makes you effective in your purpose. And because chosen ones are often emotionally intense, spiritually aware, and deeply compassionate, they feel everything on a higher level. That heightened sensitivity makes them powerful, but also more vulnerable to seductive distractions. You weren't made to live on autopilot. You were born to live with passion, with fire, with purpose. But when that fire is misdirected, it burns instead of builds. It leads you into cycles that feel good in the moment, but leave you empty and disconnected from your higher self. The truth is, the greater your spiritual charge, the more carefully you must guard your energy. You can't be careless with your presence. You can't give sacred access to people or places that haven't been spiritually vetted. Your energy is currency in the spiritual realm. Don't spend it on what weakens your soul. If the attacks have increased, if the temptations have become more intense, it's not a sign you're failing. It's proof your light is growing. So stay rooted, stay watchful, understand that you were never meant to fit in. You were born to be set apart. And with that calling comes a responsibility to protect the temple, preserve the fire, and use your energy to serve your purpose, not to satisfy fleeting cravings. Your spirit is too powerful to be entangled by what only wants to taste your glow. Rise above, reclaim your power, and shine without apology. The third reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because of the loneliness of the calling. A deep, quiet ache that few understand and even fewer talk about. When you're chosen, your path is different by design. You're called to walk away from the crowd, to leave comfort behind, to dwell in deserts where few can follow. Your elevation requires isolation, not as punishment, but as preparation. And yet, even in the sacredness of that solitude, there is a profound loneliness that can settle in like a fog. You begin to feel the weight of silence, the absence of human connection, the longing to be seen and known beyond your assignment. Friends start to fade. People admire your strength but don't stay to support your soul. You become the strong one, the wise one, the light in everyone else's darkness, and yet behind closed doors, you often sit in silence with a heart full of unmet emotional needs. And that's where lust creeps in, not just as a carnal desire, but as a counterfeit comfort, a temporary balm for a soul that aches for intimacy. It doesn't just seduce the body, it seduces the lonely places in the spirit. It doesn't just seduce the body, it seduces the lonely places in the spirit. It doesn't just seduce the body, it seduces the lonely places in the... It shows up in the form of attention, fantasy, or emotional escape, promising relief, when all you really want is to feel connected, human, held. You see, the deeper your calling, the fewer companions you'll have on the journey. Not because you are unlovable, but because your spirit is set apart. Many can celebrate your gift, but few can carry your depth. And when that realization hits, the temptation to reach for something, anything, that makes you feel wanted becomes dangerously easy. Lust offers a shortcut to intimacy, a shadow of connection that appears easier than waiting on a love that understands your soul. But what it never tells you is that after the thrill comes the void. Wider, deeper, and more painful than before. Chosen ones often confuse their desire for connection with a desire for physical closeness, when in truth, they're just craving alignment. Spiritual, emotional, and divine. But here's the beauty in the loneliness. It's not forever. It's a season of refinement. A time where God teaches you to rely on Him as your first companion, not your last resort. It's where you learn to distinguish between what's real and what's a distraction, between who feeds your soul and who only feeds your flesh. If you're walking through this lonely valley, don't let lust lie to you. Don't settle for comfort when God is preparing real covenant. Your loneliness isn't proof you've forgotten. It's proof you're being prepared. So hold the line, feel the ache, but don't numb it. Let it shape you, not shatter you. Because in the end, the love that's truly yours, divine, aligned, and enduring, will meet you on the other side of this wilderness. And it will have been worth every lonely night you refused to settle for less than what your calling deserves. The fourth reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because of repressed desires from childhood trauma, the silent wounds that never fully healed, the emotional fractures buried beneath years of strength and survival. Many chosen ones were forged in fire long before they ever understood their purpose. They were the children who carried the weight of broken households, who were forced to grow up too fast, who were emotionally neglected, abandoned, criticized, or even abused. Their childhood wasn't a playground, it was a battlefield. And in that battlefield, certain needs were never met. The need to feel safe, to be affirmed, to be loved unconditionally, to be touched without fear, to be seen without shame. These unmet needs don't disappear with age. They get buried, stuffed into the corners of the soul, covered by perfectionism, performance, or spiritual masks. But even buried pain speaks, and lust becomes the language it uses when the soul doesn't know how to cry out. Lust shows up as a misguided search for affection, a subconscious attempt to reclaim power, or a way to escape the silent ache left by childhood voids. It disguises itself as desire, but what it's really chasing is healing. Chosen ones often carry deep emotional intelligence and spiritual awareness, but their inner child, the part of them that was never nurtured, is still reaching out, still trying to feel what was once withheld. Lust exploits that vulnerability. It whispers lies like, this will make you feel wanted, this will finally give you control, or this will ease the pain. And for a moment it does, but afterward, it leaves behind guilt, shame, and deeper disconnection. This isn't about weakness, it's about wounds. Lust becomes the self-medication for trauma that was never treated. It mimics love, but never satisfies. It gives touch, but not intimacy. And the enemy knows that as long as you're bound by the past, you'll never fully step into your future. But here's the truth. What was broken in childhood doesn't have to define your adulthood. You are not your trauma. You are not your shame. You are not the abandoned child, the silenced teenager, or the wounded young soul you once were. You are the healed version God is raising up from those ashes. And your healing starts when you stop running from the pain and start confronting it. When you stop using lust to cover the wound and start letting lust, real, divine, restoring love, enter those broken places. When you allow God to reparent your soul, to affirm you, to remind you that your worth was never tied to what happened to you. Chosen one, the battle with lust is often the surface symptom of a much deeper cry. But the moment you face your past, the grip of that lust begins to lose its power. You don't have to carry it anymore. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. And healing, not hiding, is what sets you free. The fifth reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because of creative power mischanneled. A divine force within them that, when not directed with purpose, can spiral into self-sabotage. Chosen ones are inherently creative, not just in art or expression, but in spirit. They are builders, visionaries, dreamers, birders of movements and change. They carry a high level of spiritual energy designed to manifest ideas, solutions, and breakthroughs in the world. But creativity is not neutral. It must be stewarded. When that inner fire is not given a sacred outlet, when their gifts are not disciplined, or their time is not structured with intention, that same power can turn inward and begin to burn them instead of build through them. Lust becomes one of the most common misdirections of that creative force. A counterfeit creation, an imitation of intimacy, a misuse of divine energy. You see, the sexual impulse is one of the most potent creative energies on earth. It mirrors the Creator himself. The power to produce life, to form connection, to birth legacy. But when that sacred power is ungoverned, it doesn't disappear, it distorts. It seeks expression in impulsive choices, digital escapes, secret fantasies, and fleeting encounters that leave the soul unfulfilled. Chosen ones, when disconnected from their creative mission, begin to feel restless, bored, or anxious, not realizing it's not lust they crave, it's alignment. It's the call of unused potential banging on the walls of their soul, begging to be turned into purpose. When you're chosen, your mind never stops. Your spirit is constantly generating visions, passions, ideas. But when that power isn't anchored by discipline and devotion, it seeks the path of least resistance, often landing in addictive cycles masked as pleasure. Lust then becomes an emotional regulator, a false reward for energy that was meant to shape nations. Many don't understand that their struggle isn't about lack of self-control, it's about lack of creative. When your gifts are idle, your flesh gets loud. That's why staying busy isn't enough. You have to stay aligned. You have to find what you're meant to build and pour your fire into that. Whether it's writing, serving, leading, teaching, or healing, your spirit needs a mission. Lust thrives in the absence of vision. The enemy isn't afraid of your passion. He's afraid of it being harnessed. Because when chosen ones direct that same intensity, focus, and drive into their calling, they become unstoppable forces of light. So if you're battling lust, ask yourself, where am I misplacing my power? What am I not building that I was born to? Because when you rediscover your purpose, when you give your soul a target, when you pour your fire into something greater than yourself, lust begins to lose its grip. Not by force, but by replacement. And your life becomes what it was always meant to be, a masterpiece of holy power, burning with vision, purpose, and discipline. The sixth reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because of the pressure of perfection. The crushing, silent burden of always having to appear strong, righteous, and flawless in the eyes of others. From a young age, chosen ones are often put on pedestals they never asked for, admired for their wisdom, integrity, or spiritual insight, and expected to live above reproach at all times. People come to them for answers, for inspiration, for healing, but rarely ask how they're really doing. They become symbols of strength, but inside, many are silently drowning under the weight of unrealistic expectations. The pressure to be perfect creates an internal war, a split between who they are publicly and what they struggle with privately. And in that hidden place, lust can become a secret escape, a rebellion against a prison of perfection. It offers a space where no one is watching, where the chosen one can feel human again, not divine, not powerful, not perfect, just real. Lust becomes a forbidden freedom, a place to release all the tension bottled up from constantly being on. It's not just a physical desire, it's emotional exhaustion, searching for relief. Chosen ones often fear vulnerability because they've been taught their value lies in their image, their calling, their spiritual performance. So when they stumble, when they crave, when they fall, they don't tell anyone. They internalize it, bury it, and fight it alone. But the truth is, perfection is a lie. No one who ever did anything great did it without falling, without scars, without struggle. Even the mightiest spiritual warriors in scripture battled inner demons. David, the man after God's heart, fell into lust and paid the price. Paul confessed a thorn in his flesh he couldn't remove. Being chosen doesn't mean being flawless. It means being called despite your flaws, being anointed with your imperfections. The danger of the perfection trap is that it doesn't just breed secret sin, it breeds shame. And shame is the enemy of healing. The more you hide, the more you isolate. The more you isolate, the more power lust gains in your life. But freedom begins the moment you stop trying to be perfect and start being honest. When you let go of the image and embrace the process. When you stop performing and start healing. It humanizes you. God didn't call you because you were perfect. He called you because you were willing. He called you because he knew that once you overcame this, you'd be unstoppable. So take the pressure off. You are not your image. You are not your mistake. You are not your secret battle. You are a work in progress. Growing, healing, becoming. Let your story include both the fall and the rise. Because it's in your honesty, not your perfection, that others will find their way to freedom. And in your transparency, your true power will be revealed. The seventh reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because of generational curses and bloodline battles. Deep-rooted spiritual patterns passed down through family lines that quietly entangle even the most anointed souls. Before they ever had a choice, many chosen ones were born into a fight. A war that began before their birth, woven into the DNA of their lineage. Hidden beneath the smiles at family gatherings and the silence in sacred places. These are not just learned behaviors. They are inherited strongholds, spiritual entanglements that have run through generations, like a hidden river of dysfunction. Lust, infidelity, secret addictions, broken relationships, and emotional neglect may have been common threads in the lives of parents, grandparents, and beyond. And while the chosen one may rise to new heights of faith, purpose, and power, they still find themselves wrestling in private with a pull they cannot always explain. That's because being chosen doesn't exempt you from the war. It assigns you to end it. You were sent to be the breaker of cycles, the one who stops the flow of darkness by confronting what others ignored. But make no mistake, the fight is real. The enemy studies bloodlines. He knows where the weaknesses lie, where the cracks are, what whispers still echo in your soul from childhood, and he uses lust as one of his most effective tools, because it targets both the spirit and the flesh. It feels intimate but isolates. It looks like pleasure but ends in shame. It mimics connection while deepening disconnection from purpose. Many chosen ones feel confused or even tormented. How can someone so called, so gifted, so spiritually awake, still struggle with something so destructive? The answer is because the calling is on your life to break what broke others before you. You're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for your family, for the future, for every generation that comes after you. Lust is not just a personal issue, it's a spiritual assignment meant to disqualify and distract. But when you begin to understand the nature of the battle, you stop treating it like a weakness and start addressing it like warfare. You begin to fast, to pray, to repent, not only for your own actions, but to break the agreements made in your bloodline. You stop normalizing what your spirit knows is destructive, and you declare, it stops with me. Chosen one, your struggle is not shameful, it's sacred. It means you've been appointed to shift the narrative, to rewrite the story, to uproot the seeds of bondage and plant the seeds of freedom. Yes, the battle is hard. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, you may fall. But every time you rise again, you weaken the chains that once held your bloodline captive. You were born to be the generational curse breaker. The battle may be in your blood, but so is the victory. Fight on, because freedom isn't just your destiny, it's your legacy. The eighth reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because of the lack of true mentorship and accountability. A silent void that leaves even the most gifted and anointed vulnerable to hidden battles. Many chosen ones are thrust into leadership or calling without the crucial support systems needed to sustain their spiritual and emotional health. They are expected to lead, teach, and inspire, yet rarely given safe spaces to be real, to confess struggles, or to receive guidance from those who have walked the path before them. Without authentic mentorship, they navigate their calling in isolation, often believing they must handle temptation and trials alone. This absence creates a dangerous gap between their public persona and private reality, a gap lust eagerly exploits. Accountability is not about judgment or shame. It is about connection, restoration, and growth. When chosen ones lack mentors who understand the complexities of their spiritual journey, who can speak wisdom, pray with insight, and hold them to a higher standard of holiness and self-care, they are left exposed. The enemy knows this and attacks accordingly, flooding their minds and hearts with seductive lies that whisper, "You're alone in this," or "No one will understand if you fall." Without accountability, temptation can quickly become secret sin, hidden from view but corrosive in effect. Chosen ones may struggle to confess because they fear losing respect, or they may not even recognize the patterns of lust as spiritual attacks requiring strategy and help. True mentorship offers something far deeper than advice. It offers a living example of victory and vulnerability intertwined. It creates a sacred space where wounds are not dismissed but healed, where failure is met with grace, and where struggle is met with practical wisdom. Accountability partners remind chosen ones that they do not walk alone, that their battles are not shameful, and that their healing is possible. Without this, the pressure to be perfect and the burden of secrecy can become unbearable, driving the soul toward destructive coping mechanisms like lust. But when mentorship and accountability are present, They become spiritual lifelines, anchor points that hold the chosen one steady amid storms. They teach discipline, self-awareness and boundaries, helping to channel creative energy into purpose rather than temptation. They provide correction without condemnation, encouragement without pretense, and friendship without conditions. If you are chosen and struggling, seek out those who have gone before you. Do not let pride or fear keep you isolated. The power of shared vulnerability is profound. It breaks chains, restores identity, and renews purpose. Remember, you were never meant to carry the burden of your calling alone. True mentorship and accountability are not signs of weakness, but hallmarks of wisdom and strength. They equip you to face temptation head-on, to walk in victory daily, and to shine even brighter in your divine assignment. Your freedom is connected to the community you build. Embrace it, protect it, and let it transform your struggle into triumph. The ninth reason chosen ones secretly struggle with lust is because the enemy fears their full power. A truth both profound and unsettling, revealing that the very temptations chosen ones face are not random, but strategic attacks aimed at keeping them from stepping fully into their destiny. When God chooses a person, He places within them extraordinary potential. Power to heal, to lead, to transform, to shift entire spheres of influence. This power threatens the enemy's kingdom because it represents light breaking into darkness, order disrupting chaos, and freedom overcoming bondage. The enemy knows that if the chosen one fully awakens to their identity and purpose, whole generations will be changed, strongholds broken, and legacies transformed. So the battle becomes fierce, personal, and relentless. Lust is one of the enemy's most effective weapons because it attacks the core of who the chosen one is. Their purity, their focus, their self-mastery. It tries to distract, to shame, to derail their progress and diminish their influence. The enemy doesn't just want them to stumble. He wants them to believe they are unworthy of greatness, that their calling is too heavy, too impossible to fulfill. But here is the paradox. The very presence of this struggle is a sign of their significance. It is a confirmation that the enemy fears what they carry inside. Lust, temptation, and internal conflict become tests, refining fires meant to awaken greater resilience and deeper reliance on divine strength. The chosen one is invited not to succumb, but to rise, to see their struggle not as failure, but as part of the heroic journey toward fullness. When they resist, confess, and overcome, they shatter the enemy's plans and claim territory for their destiny. The battle against lust is not just about self-restraint. It's about spiritual warfare on a higher plane, a war over the manifestation of God's kingdom through their life. The enemy's attacks are loudest where the light shines brightest, and chosen ones must remember that their weaknesses do not define them, but their victories do. The power they possess is not something to be hidden or feared. It is a force of nature waiting to be unleashed when they refuse to be ashamed or silenced by temptation. Instead, they must embrace their struggles as fuel for growth, stepping boldly into the fullness of who they were created to be. Each victory weakens the enemy's hold, not only on their own lives, but on the generations to come. The enemy fears the chosen one, because in their rise lies the unraveling of every plan designed to keep humanity captive. So to those struggling with lust and doubt, remember, your fight is proof that you are on the path to greatness. Your power is real, your calling is sacred, and your victory is inevitable. Stand firm, resist the lies, and walk forward with courage, because when you fully step into your power, you become unstoppable, a living testament that the light will always overcome the darkness. So to every chosen one listening, reading and wrestling in silence, hear this. Your struggle is not your identity, it's your initiation. It's not a sign of failure, it's a sign of divine formation. You are not alone. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not disqualified by your weakness. You are being prepared by it. The lust you battle in secret is not greater than the purpose you carry. The fire that tries to consume you is the same fire God will use to refine you. This is not your end, it's your awakening. The enemy wouldn't fight you this hard if there wasn't something in you that terrified him. Every temptation, every fall, every tear cried in secret is proof that you were born with something hell cannot contain. You are not fighting lust because you're dirty. You're fighting it because you're destined. And the more you rise, the more hell shakes. But victory doesn't come through perfection. It comes through surrender, through community, through truth. It comes when you stop hiding and start healing. When you stop pretending and start pressing into purpose. When you begin to see yourself not as damaged, but as dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. The time has come to stop living beneath your calling, to stop letting shame steal your voice, to stop confusing your struggle with your story's ending. You are being called to rise, not just for you, but for every person who will find their freedom through your testimony. Lust may have been the battlefield, but you are the weapon forged in fire, sharpened by grace, and destined for impact. So lift your head, wipe your tears, lace up your spirit, and fight back. Not in your own strength, but in the strength of the one who called you, cleansed you, and crowned you. Because when you walk in truth, when you reclaim your authority, when you remember who you are, the chosen, the called, the redeemed, no temptation, no past, no enemy can stop what God has already begun in you. Let today be the turning point. Not the day you became perfect, but the day you stopped pretending. The day you embraced your journey, your growth, your divine assignment. Because your story isn't over. It's just getting started. And your victory is not just possible, it's promised.